everyone. This is Pat Mesiti live in 5, and today we have with us what I believe a national treasure in this country. A man that started a business with $24, a university student, and now has over 4,000 franchises, over 35,000 customers through his franchisees. A man who's committed to helping Australians not only just build their own businesses, but really, you know, they'll look after each other and look after themselves. And one of the things I love about Jim Penman, my good friend I might add, is that he's always, his number one concern is the welfare of his franchisees. And we've all, or many of you would have seen the press that Jim is suing the state government of Victoria, and rightfully so, I believe, for what's been happening down there. So without further ado, the man himself, I believe, a national treasure in our country. And Jim Penman, how are you, my friend?
Well, I'd be better if these idiotic restrictions were off, but yeah, apart from that, good.
Jim, tell us what prompted you to do this. And I mean, you know, you went from being a bit of a fan of Dan's to, hey, this is not on. Tell us, you know, and this is your platform, my brother. Just share with us what happened and why this and why now.
Not sure you could be a fan of the Premier at any time, but I was very solidly behind the restrictions when they first came out. I badly miss going to church. I really do. I love my church, and it's really hard. But I've never in a million years suggested it's right to go to church, to do mass of people in the streets, to you know, personal distance. I downloaded the COVID Safe app. I encouraged everybody to do the same thing. We have really strict procedures in gyms about how we collect money and so forth. We really 100% supported sensible restrictions. And when the stage 4 restrictions came out, what is it, 5 weeks ago now, the initial restrictions actually were quite sensible. They were well thought out. There's about 5 pages of detailed ideas. Obviously, the best experts in the country, the people who really knew about health, put these together. And one of the things they said in this is, right at the top, absolutely at the top, a sole operator alone on site can continue to operate regardless of anything else. That's the best expert advice there is. And we thought, okay, this is reasonable, this is fair, we'll go along, we'll work with the government on this, we'll sort of make sure all of our franchisees do everything right and keep to the law, and let's control this infection. And then the next week, in a news conference, the Premier gets up and says, no more mowing and cleaning. Now, why did he say that? It completely contradicted his own advice from his own Department of Health and Human Services, and without explanation, he just shut it down totally. Why did he do it? I think almost certainly the reason was he hadn't read his own restrictions. He just didn't know. He spouted it off at a news conference. And then what happens? Okay, what do you got? A situation. You've got somebody who is got 2 choices. He can either say, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Obviously, the guidelines do allow it because it's obviously safe. And my advice is it's safe for a sole operator, because how could they infect anybody? They're not, they're not touching the client. They're not going near the clients. They're not working in groups. I mean, they're not doing anything. They're safer than if they're at home. So he could have said, I made a mistake. That was my mistake. Okay, I'll draw it. But obviously, sensible restrictions are in place. Or the other choice is you could throw tens of thousands of the most vulnerable Victorians out of work for no reason. Well, to Dan Andrews, that was obviously a really easy choice. Now, why did he make the change? I have written 3 open letters, which have been on some of the national news stories, have been referred to, probably forwarded by thousands of people, basically asking him, what was your reason for this change, Premier? Why do you change? You say in it that I can't ignore expert advice. Well, you do ignore expert advice. Why do you do it? Where's your evidence that a person who mows somebody's lawn alone on a site without touching themselves, anybody, going anywhere near anybody else, where is your evidence that person? Show me any study. Show me any study in Australia, overseas, New Zealand, Canada, anywhere. The people like that are a danger. And what do we get? Complete and utter silence. This is the Premier who boasts about how he talks to businesses at all levels. Well, hang on a bit. I represent tens of thousands of sole traders throughout the state. I'm the only person speaking for them. I've written you several public letters. You haven't even sent me an email to say, got it. You've said nothing at all. You flatly refused. Obviously, there are no reasons at all. And that's what's got me outraged. Before this stage, I was fine, on board, support the government, let's fight this thing. Now that you start having lunatic, crazy, senseless restrictions, I'm going to fight it everywhere I can through the court of public opinion.
And you know, Jim, you've got hundreds of thousands of Australians that are behind you, not just your franchisees, but hundreds of thousands of Australians. We all feel the madness of all this. None of it makes sense. Lancet Medical Journal says lockdowns don't work. It doesn't work, has not worked. We've got Taiwan, we've got Switzerland, we've got all these countries, Sweden, that didn't have these restrictions that contain. And sometimes people go, oh, but what about the elderly? Well, he didn't do a good job on that either. What I'm finding is that this guy cannot admit to one error, but constantly blames people and takes a shot at the people that can get us out of this financial mess we're in, which is local business guys. And for that, we commend you, Jim. So you've heard nothing at all from the Premier, nothing at all from his office, zero.
No. What people have got to realise too is that this isn't actually saving lives. If you actually throw people out of work who are no threat to public health, they go home and they're depressed. I mean, the rate of suicide, they claim that rate of suicide hasn't risen. That's garbage. We know quite well that suicide, admissions to hospital, attempts at suicide have gone up by a third already. There is massive problems. There's doctors telling this is a terrible, terrible danger. And the actual deaths from COVID are exaggerated. Somebody I know had their elderly father go into hospital to die. They were dying of cancer. They're going to be dead within a couple of weeks, but they're going to make them comfortable in the last thing. Got COVID, they died. On the death certificate, COVID. He died of cancer. Everyone knows he died of cancer. Don't you want $25,000? $25,000 to lie on the death certificate.
Absolutely. And Brett Sutton himself, Brett, who hired Magda to do their little, you know, Kath and Kim commercial, just made me irate, Jim. You know, let's get back to what's really important, netting. I mean, do they think we're idiots? But here's what Brett Sutton said. He said, no, people that are dying, they're not dying of COVID, but they just put them in that because they get 25 grand.
That's right.
$25,000 to put that on a certificate. Where's this money coming from and why? I don't understand that.
So we exaggerate the COVID deaths and we completely do away with the others. It's absolutely appalling, the suffering. I know one particular guy who's been in contact with me. His son attempted suicide. Luckily he survived. His daughter, who's a student, who's at home, is depressed. She's got really severe anorexia. The neighbor's kid is in a coma, probably because of an attempted suicide too. The damage is terrible. Like this poor lady I know, who's actually a dog wash franchisee of ours. Now, because she's a student on a student visa, she's got no public welfare. You know what's happening? She's actually going to the neighbors to beg for leftovers. You know, her franchisor has given us some money. I've lent her some money. She's been gifted with Uber Eats vouchers so she can eat. She's desperate to put things into her garden to grow something quick enough to eat. This is somebody who's no threat to the public at all. No. And the Premier couldn't give a stuff about this.
No. How does a guy or a woman on a lawnmower or washing a dog on their own, no one around, you've complied with all the rules of masking, which I personally think Dan Andrews said the masks don't work. It came out of his own mouth. It's on public record. Then he says masks. Personally, I think it's a dictatorship. It's actually a power gone out of control. How do you feel about that, Jim? What's your take on why, or is it just something that your mind's going, I don't get this? You know, what do you think?
Masks I'm okay with because they're just uncomfortable. I don't like them. You go to supermarket, you wear a mask, so what? I mean, it doesn't probably make a lot of difference, but it doesn't hurt. But these restrictions so badly hurt. And that's my argument with them. Let's do things that might have an effect on the infection, reasonably consistent with the damage it does to the individual. That's all I'm saying. Let's do the things that might affect it. I don't think we should go rushing back to football games or to church and stuff like that yet. But there's so much that's stupid that's going on.
Jim, how much financially is this hurting the, you know, I mean, you've got the 4,000 plus franchisees. I don't know how many exactly in Victoria, but how much pressure and how much is this causing them losses, dollars and cents on a weekly basis to the local, you know, Jim's franchise guy? What would that be costing them?
We think there's probably about 700 that are suspended, and they probably average $2,000 to $3,000 a week. So you know,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money for the average person, and it hurts them. What have you seen from the impact? I'm sure because you're very close to your franchisees and you deal with them, but what are you hearing from them as to the pain that it's causing them in their homes, in their families? What are you hearing?
The hurt is terrible. You know, we've actually, as soon as this thing started, we actually suspended all their fees. We're not going to charge people fees when they're forbidden by law, even though they can do NDIS and stuff. We said no fees, that's fine. But you know what? My franchisors, we're not charging them, of course, but they're not getting paid, but they're actually ringing the franchisees more regularly than ever because mental health is such an issue. We've had people commit suicide in the past in gyms. We know what it's like, and it's like a family. You know, when somebody commits suicide, you feel it right across the network because we're all connected. And now I know that's what they're doing. They're ringing them up regularly, saying, "How are you going, mate? Keep in there. Don't despair. This will all be over. I'm with you. I know it's hard, but you know, we're all together." And they ring each other. We've had offers people interstate to ring our guys in Melbourne to give them support. I mean, there are wonderful, wonderful people in my company. I'm so proud of them. They're not getting paid, but they're still caring for their guys.
Well, you've created a great culture there, Jim. And you know, when I hear you speak and you've shared with us on numerous occasions, you're always big on the culture you've created. Did I read somewhere that it's okay for council workers to mow grass and everything else, but not your guys?
Yeah, they're all over the place, even in working in groups. Look, I don't want to denigrate these guys. Actually, I had an email a couple of days back from a group of workers for the Caulfield Council, and they said, "Jim, we're absolutely behind you in this. You're good on you for speaking out. It's completely crazy what they're doing. We're the council workers. We're doing the same job. This shouldn't happen." These are really decent guys. I don't object to them working. I really don't. They've got families and stuff. Fine. But what's stupid is the inconsistency. If a sole operator is in danger, how can you say council workers in groups are not? It doesn't make any sense.
There's a double standard here, Jim. And again, look, I've been out there. I've been very vocal. And I mean, yesterday, a lady in Melbourne, pregnant, in her pajamas, in front of her kids, gets arrested. The video hits 1.4 million in 4 hours, arrested for posting that she was going to a march. Now, it's okay for the Black Lives Matter mob to march, but it's not okay for a woman who's pregnant to go for a walk, by the way, which she's entitled to. It seems like there's a standard for one now that just here in Queensland. Yeah. The AFL guys, the execs, all fly up to Brisbane, stay in a golf resort, no quarantine. And, you know, our other dictator, Palaszczuk, she gets applauded for getting the AFL. Hang on, but you can't go to church. I can't see my kids. And I mean, it reeks of double standards, doesn't it really, Jim? You know,
I think if you try and understand these restrictions on the basis of public health, it's incomprehensible. You've got to understand it totally different. It's all based on political pull. If you are politically connected, if your union gives vast sums to the Labor government, then you are somehow not a danger to public health. If you don't, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how little danger you are, you can't operate. It's lunatic.
Jim, where now and where are we at with all this right now? Just for the sake of our viewers. I mean, our viewers love you, support you, those that know you, that they're praying for you. And I know you're a man of faith and we've never shied away from that. But you're a businessman. And of course, you know, we've got to, you know, you go to the Lord upstairs. We've also got to do practically. Where now? Where are we up to? What's next?
Look, first, my business is okay. I could, if they could carry this thing on until Christmas, and I would personally be fertile. We've actually let a couple of people go. We've had to do some retrenchments, but my company is solvent. But you cannot say the same thing for the operators out there. And look, just let's not be clear. We've got maybe 700 affected. There are tens of thousands in the state who are actually probably worse off than our people because they're not usually quite as. Jewish people are usually a bit more successful than most, but they can't cope with this. And I know what's actually happening. And I'm not telling anybody at any time to disobey the law, but what I'm saying is going to happen. And the Premier's got to understand this. People are not going to put up with this. And I know quite well, there's a lot of people who are going to be going back to work and they're going to defy it. And they're going to just say, you know, I challenge you. And the fines come out and we will defend the fines in court. And we're actually going to be quite blunt. We're going to actually show them how to do it. We're going to show them how to defend themselves if they're fined. We're not saying break the law, but we're saying if you believe the law is wrong and there's good constitutional evidence that it is wrong, then take it up in court. And what's going to happen is, I believe, and I'm just saying this, I'm not necessarily encouraging. I'm saying it's what's going to happen. You're going to get mass people going out there doing things. The police are going to find them. They're going to challenge the fines, and the courts are going to be so backed up. They'll be years and years ahead. And that's if they even accept it, because I have heard that the courts are starting to reject these fines.
You know what's sad, Jim, is that people blame the police, and they're an easy target, but they're not. They're just doing what the Premier has instructed. And I feel sorry for the police. I mean, they've got enough problems with some of the stuff going on overseas, but it's squarely at the feet of the Premier, who acts like these, power crazy people. So is this right now in the courts? Is it about to go to court? Where I know you're teaching your franchisees what to do. What can the average person do?
Just spread the word. Just talk about it. Follow media. Just tell everybody they know. Put pressure on members of parliament. They managed to buy off the minority members, bribe or threaten them or whatever. So they got it through. He's basically got another 6 months of untrammeled dictatorship, and I'm sure they'll give it to him another 6 months or a year. Look, the Premier could shut down every small business in the state until Christmas. He couldn't give a stuff. If anybody loses their business and has to go for work for vast corporations or go on the dole, that would suit him fine, because it increases his power base. So I think you just got to speak out. I mean, I must say, first of all, what you said before about the police. Now, I'm not comparing with Queensland or anything, but I can tell you, Victorian police are the most fantastic body you could possibly imagine. I have had so many contact with them over the years. They are decent, they are professional, they are hardworking, they are caring. We had a family problem. We had a severe problem, and there was this lady at local police station who helped us out with it. She was the most decent person you could imagine. I love the police, and I hate the idea we should ever come into conflict with them. But when the police commissioner says to the police, under instructions from the Premier, target Jim's Mowing because this guy has spoken out at me, this is politicising the police and undermining them in the worst possible way. Absolutely.
And the thing is that I've got friends in Melbourne that are in the police force, and they're torn. They're torn. The emotional turmoil in their hearts, because they're not agreeing with it either. But Jim, look, we're behind you 100%. And we support you. I support you as a friend. Support you as an Australian. It seems like we're not all in this together. I think most of us are, Pat. I really do believe public opinion
we are. In the past couple of weeks.
The elite tend to, I think when they say keeping us apart keeps us together, it's not the case. I quite frankly am tired of the cheap slogans, Jim. The cheap slogans to me are just cheap. I don't understand, and I love Scott Morrison. He's a great man. I believe he's been sent to us, he's been a gift to us, but I don't know why he doesn't enforce some of these things. At the end of the day, Scott put us, started the whole thing with shutting things down. To exercise the constitutional powers that he has is beyond me why that hasn't happened. And, I commend you for standing up for what's right. I know my views as well.
I'm not a lawyer, Pat, so I don't know what I think the Prime Minister's done a pretty good job during the crisis. I take my hat off to him. It's been a tough road. I think he's been fair and balanced and reasonable. I wish I could say the same thing for our own Premier. Yeah. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for being on our Live at 5 today. We support you, mate. And if there's anything we can do, just, reach out to me and in our community. We're here for you. And thank you for standing up for our freedoms as Australians, as business owners, and speaking some common sense into this craziness. So, Jim, thank you so much. Thanks, Pat.